Well, hey there, you caffeinated caterpillars. Welcome to today's video. I'm going to be showing you how I make cold brew coffee. It is something that I have experimented about extensively. I've come to some conclusions. I'm going to share them with you. I mentioned cold brew in a favorites video a while ago and asked if you guys would want to see how to do that, and a good portion of you said yes. So that is what's happening to you and me in this moment. Just a little brief thing about cold brew if you don't know what or why it would happen to your kitchen or your body. There are two reasons why I prefer cold brew coffee. One, it is objectively more delicious, and two, it is much less acidic and therefore easier on your tum-tum. It's like has 63% or something like that less acid than traditionally brewed coffee. And just to back up those claims real quick, when you use hot water to extract the juices from your coffee's mind grapes, it releases a lot of acid, which makes it harder to digest, and it also adds a lot of bitterness. So when you use cold water and just time to extract the juices from the mind grapes, then the result is much richer and smoother, and it doesn't have that little bit of bitterness so much, and it's delightful. And I hope you enjoy this process and find it helpful. I actually began this video last night and then finished it up this morning, and then now I'm filming the intro, so what time is it? I don't know. Where are we? Who are you? But the point is, I did not feel like setting up my whole camera deal downstairs outside of my loftus, so we are now going to transport to last night using my phone to film in a poorly lit kitchen. So now that you are prepared mentally, emotionally for the drastic change in video, audio, and light quality you're about to experience, let us begin.
Hey y'all, welcome. So the first thing we're gonna do in this process of brewing our own cold is grind some beans, okay? And we're gonna do that for one simple reason, which is that my brother told me to. And here's the thing, I have a secret cheat code when it comes to anything in the kitchen, and that cheat code is my brother because he's a big fancy pants chef, and he said that it's really important to grind your beans. Otherwise, you might as well just not be doing any of this because there are oils in the beans, and when you grind them and then the grinds have been sitting for a while, they dissipate into the ether, never to be seen again, and you lose a lot of the flavor. So, a couple of things to keep in mind when you are selecting your beans. The folks over at Cooks Illustrated, who I am obsessed with, they're my other little secret weapon in the kitchen. Talk about a bunch of fucking Virgos, man. My kind of people. If you're not familiar, they basically do like really extensive testing on different recipes. Let me just show you something. My brother got me this book for Christmas a million years ago, and it's the shit, and it doesn't just tell you like, here's a recipe. It's like, here's a recipe, and here's why it's the best recipe, because we tested it a million times in a million different ways, and that is my jam. Food pun, accidental. Anyway, they did a bunch of tests for cold brew also and found that medium roast translates the best flavor to the cold brewing process. So you want to pick a medium roast, and when you go to grind it, you want to make sure that you are doing a coarse grind. I'm going to be using these medium roast, organic, fair trade, feel like a good person without doing any effort beans that I got at Aldi, my favorite weird little culty grocery store that I love to hate and shop at constantly. It's actually really good coffee, and it's only $5 for this bag, which is crazy. And then the grinder I'm using, I also got at Aldi. This video is not sponsored by Aldi. You may have picked up on that when I called them a cult, or maybe not. But they didn't give me any money, which is like rude, honestly. So anyway, I got this grinder there because I was shopping with my brother when he was in town once upon a time, and he was like, hey, if you're gonna brew your own coffee, you should buy that because that's a really good price for a burr mill grinder, which is the purpose of this story, to tell you the word burr mill, because he said that most coffee grinders, they just like shave, they make basically little shavings. If I'm misquoting him, sorry bro, but that a burr mill actually, it grinds them as opposed to just like slicing them up. And that matters apparently. I don't think it matters so much that you have to find a burr mill grinder. This one was only $20, and that's why he was like, you should get that, because normally burr mills are more expensive, and it has served me faithfully. I haven't caught it having sex with anyone else, and that's what I'm basing that off of. All right, so I'm ready to grind the beans now, so let's talk proportions. I like to fill up a mason jar, basically. This is my end game here. I'm gonna end up with about this much cold brew. And in order to do that, I like to use a ratio of like 1 to 3, 1 to 2.5 to 3 beans to water, not the other way around. That would be some very thick coffee. So I'm going to grind up like 1.5 to 2 cups of beans right now, this very moment. I am super dumb, so dumb. I was so focused on being funny for the camera that I way overfilled it. It's all part of the process. Some people out there in this world are super stupid like me, and they need to see mistakes happen that are relatable. Like doing a weird smiley dance at the camera and then pouring twice as many beans in as you mean to, you know? I'm just trying to keep my content fresh, relatable. Dumb. I think somebody's got a new slogan. Fresh, relatable, dumb. So I've got it set to coarse, and now I'm gonna push a button. Done. Whew. A little out of breath there. So now, just to follow along, I am putting the coffee back in that I had to take out initially because I filled it to twice its capacity. Because I'm a smart lady, you should listen to my words. Before I could show you my wet dinosaur baby. But you know what? It's not a song. It's just grinding coffee. But anything's music if you believe. And anything's a tiny wet dinosaur baby also. Anyway, so now I've got this neat little thing full of coffee. And an important step here is to make sure that you stop to smell the crack. Just give me a minute, please. Also, in case you have this grinder at home and you're like, what are you doing? The lid comes off, you weird lunatic. First of all, touche, I am a weird lunatic. And second of all, I know that the sizes are not compatible. It's harder to pour it and not... So I just hold it down with my fingy and then I pour it out the tiny hole. Is that what she said? No. Until it gets towards the end. And then I open it up and get into business, and that is what she said. All right, so as you can see with your eyes, it's filled to about this little line with a number 2 on it, which means for the math impaired that this is about 2 cups of ground beans. All right, so now I'm going to add some water into this bitch. Like I said, my preference is to do like a 1 to 2.5, 3-part ratio of beans to water. Coffee is supposed to make my life easier and not harder, and technically you can put more water in it, but I like it to be a little bit strong. And if you put less water in it and make a concentrate, that is a possibility. That's an option, especially if you have limited refrigerator space. So you can put, you know, I've even seen like a 1-to-1 ratio of water to beans, and then you just add more water as you consume it. But to me, that's just like so much work. I want to wake up and be a dead person and then just pour it and then be like done and not have to be doing a second pouring of more water in. As I'm saying it, it seems like less of an issue than I have believed it to be, and that's on me. but I want it to be like good to go. I want her to be like DTF, okay? I will also say that this video is the culmination of, I just went on a long thing about how I'm so lazy that I literally can't like pour extra water in each morning, and now I'm going to talk about all the work that I did to come to this conclusion. I have layers like an onion or a parfait. But truly I did do an extensive amount of research and trial and error to come to these conclusions that I'm now sharing with you. And so I just wanted to point out like a few things that I learned that I have deemed matter, and therefore now it's written into law. The first one is that the temperature actually does matter. I think at this point I have read every single cold brew coffee article or recipe on the interwebs, and I saw some that were like, put it in for 12 hours in the fridge, and that was sort of one extreme as far as like a limited amount of time and a cold temperature. I found that to still be pretty watery. I'm sure if you use a lot more coffee, then maybe that wouldn't be the case, but I also do this because it's way cheaper, so I don't want to use like a fuck ton of coffee all the time. So I have found that room temperature works best, and really any time between 12 and 24 hours is sufficient, as long as you're using at least a concentrate of like 1 to 3. So now I'm just gonna pour in some filtered water, and I usually just pour it to right around this 6-cup line. So really it's about probably like 5-ish cups of water to 1.5, 2 cups. But you know, you'll have to experiment because depending on what beans you're using. I also wanted to point out that the people at Cooks Illustrated, when they tested these different methods, found that the water to grind contact ratio mattered. So what I mean by that is they did a bunch of different, like, you know, you can buy kits and things on Amazon for like a cold brew coffee maker, and the ones where there wasn't a lot of contact between the water and the beans, like maybe it was like all the beans were in a little cylinder and there was water all around, didn't produce as good of results as the ones where the water and the beans could really mix, which makes sense. So I usually just put on my lid and give it a little gyration. Oh. After I shake it, I loosen the lid back up. Full disclosure, probably a pointless step. I do it out of I assume to be a rational fear that gases will build up inside and it'll like pop the lid or something. Like I know it's crazy, but I'm just telling you that I'm doing it. I want the air to be able to get out so it doesn't build up and explode in my kitchen. So you can probably leave it airtight and it's fine. I just don't leave jars airtight out of the fridge because I'm scared of salsa. I think a salsa bottle exploded when I was a kid and I have never recovered. Actually, I'm positive that's what it is. Thank you guys so much for helping me get there. All right, so I'm gonna let that sit overnight, and then I figured as a little bonus, I'd show you guys how I make simple syrup, because I'm also doing that tonight. So obviously you can use creamer, you can dress up your coffee however you want. You don't have to use any sugar at all if you're really extra cool and you just like don't even need coffee to be sweet, then. But I am certified not cool, and I definitely like my coffee to have some sugar in it. So I make simple syrup because it's so easy to make that it feels irrational to leave my house to buy it. I really want you guys to understand that, like, if I do a thing in the kitchen, it is because it is so simple syrup. To make it, you literally combine water with sugar in a pan over medium heat and stir it continuously and bring it to a boil and then let it cool. Like, that's the whole process. I'm gonna show you anyway. And I wanted to, you know, also give you some helps because there are a couple things to keep in mind. So again, I like to use products that make me feel like a really good person and most importantly, look like a really good person when I'm talking to you guys. So I use organic cane sugar. You're welcome. It's non-GMO and it's simply from nature. And by that I mean simply from Aldi. Just FYI, less processed sugars like this guy, or turbinado sugar, anything like that, actually are a little bit less sweet, like per unit, than traditional white refined sugar. And I don't like to dilute my coffee with a large quantity of syrup or ice or really anything. So I recommend making the heavy version of simple syrup. So simple syrup is usually a 1-to-1 ratio water to sugar, but you can also do a 2-to-1 ratio of water to sugar, and it doesn't make a profound difference, but it helps a little bit so that you're not like just feeling excessive. So in a pan, I'm gonna put 2 cups, pans and cups, we have so many tools in the kitchen, of sugar, and 1 cup of water. Science. I'm gonna put 1 cup of filtered water, and you guys are not gonna give me shit about my less than eco-friendly water bottles. I'm traveling! Give me a break, guys. God. I have not yet turned on the stove. When you make simple syrup, you want to bring the water and the sugar up to warm, boiling, if you will. Actually, no, not if you will, it is you will. From room temperature. And before I start that process, I wanted to mention something. This is very easy to do, but the golden rule of sugar, as God wrote in the Bible, is that sugar will be very weird to you if you are weird to it first. And what I mean by that is it crystallizes and does funky stuff if you like try to do anything other than just this. Sometimes if you like make a batch and try to combine it with another batch, then it's like, I don't like that batch. I don't fuck with that batch. Why would you put me there against my will? And it's upset. And it's just like it does stuff. So just do this and don't not do this. So I'm putting it on medium heat. And I'm just gonna stir this bitch. It's gonna be a while. I pray my dick get big, you see that was out, so I can fuck the world from 72 now. Goddamn, I got bitches. Damn, I got bitches. Damn, I got bitches. Wife, your girlfriend, and mistress. Biatch, no way. Biatch, no way. Biatch, no way. Biatch, okay. So it's probably been somewhere between 6 and 8 minutes, and I just wanted to kind of show you guys what's going down, and also point out that when I say bring it to a boil, I mean like just let it get to that point of boiling right about here where it's, you can see if I hold still for a second, some little bubbles are forming right around here, and I'm feeling in the pan to make sure there's no little crystals left. I like crystals, but not sugar crystals. Not in my coffee, no thank you. And basically, I'm gonna turn the heat off, and I'm gonna take this off in a second. And I'm just gonna let it cool. So I took it off the heat, and I'm just gonna let it cool, and once it's not scalding, boiling hot anymore, I'm going to put it inside of my syrup storage device. You can also make flavored syrups if you so choose, but just make sure that if you put any flavoring like vanilla extract or something like that, you wait until it's cooled also, because a lot of those are alcohol based, and the alcohol and everything will just burn off if you put it in when it's still really hot. Just let it cool down a little bit and then add some shit in there if you want. So that's all I'm gonna do for tonight, and then in the morning I will get up and I will put on makeup and pretend like I just sort of look like that, kind of like how I put makeup on before this video, right before I go to bed. And then I'm gonna strain this and make a cup of joe. Sleep tight. I know you guys aren't going to bed in between now and in 2 seconds when it cuts to the morning, but I am, and I think that you should treat people how you want to be treated. Good morning, guys. Full disclosure, it's like 4 p.m., but that doesn't matter. What matters is it's time to brew some coffee. Can we also just take a second to acknowledge the power of lighting, because I looked much grosser last night than I do right now. I'm filming on my cellular phone, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, yeah, it's much better. Anyway, it's been overnight and somewhat into the day, and this guy has been chilling in a jar. And now all that's left to do is to remove the grinds from the water so that we're left with what's known as coffee. There are different things you can buy and use to do this process. I like to use these little baggies from Organic Family Products. That's nice. I got them on Amazon. It actually comes with a pack of 2, which is nice. And the reason why I like them is that they're simple and reusable, and no, they're not giving me any money for this. They're good quality, and I think this is smart. I'll show you what it does in a second. But a couple other popular systems I wanted to touch on and my experience with them, why I decided to use bags. The Toddy system, Toddy, that I got off of Amazon is like the most popular one, I think. And it gets really good reviews, so obviously a lot of people are pleased with it. I did not love it. And just to give you another perspective, it's basically like a big pitcher that goes on top of like a shorter jar, and it has a little filter, and you put the water and the grinds in together overnight, like same kind of process, and then you just pull out a stopper and it strains the coffee for you. I did not love it for a couple of reasons, and I will rank them sort of by like probably least important to the biggest issue I had. First of all, it doesn't have a lid for the part where the water and the coffee rest overnight, and that just made me feel weird. I was like, what if a fly flies into it? I don't know. It just seemed strange, but not a huge deal. Also, the filters are kind of fussy, so like you have to store them in a baggie in a fridge. None of this is a huge deal, but the filters are kind of fussy. Like you can't mix the grinds in the water together or like shake at all because it might clog the filter. So you have to pour the water over the grinds like in a circular motion, just sort of hoping that it all gets mixed together overnight. And I'm sure it does, but it just seemed weird. I want to like do this and feel peace. It's also pretty unattractive, and I didn't really like leaving it out because it's also large and has weird proportions. Like it's big and white thing on the top and then just like kind of a little jar. But the biggest problem was that when it's done, you pull out the stopper and it, you know, goes through the filter for you. It's pretty slow. I have zero patience for things like that, and a lot of times my mornings are frantic and I don't want to like sit patiently and wait for it to drip through. So I like that with this I can just pour it through and strain it and then I'm done. Again, other people liked it. It was like $35. These were like between $10 and $15 for the pack of 2, but then I also got the jars and some other things. So I don't mind spending like a little bit of money on something if it's going to make my life easier, but I genuinely found this to be the easiest system. The other thing that I see online, people talking about doing a lot, is using a French press, which is fine, except the quantities are insane. You can only make like a tiny little batch, and that I'm not here for that. So anyway, I like these bags, and now I'm going to show you how I use them. So after this has been sitting out, I tighten the lid after my idiosyncratic releasing of the lid from the night before. And then I just do like a little shake and remove the lid. Very important. And I take a surprise second jar that's identical, and I take my little bag and I put it inside out. Okay, so I just do this with my giant hands that need a manicure. Ta-da! And then I just pour it. And I will say the first time you use these bags, they might be a little stiff and take longer for the water to pass through. But once you've used them once and rinsed them and thrown them in the wash, you no longer have that issue. So I like to pour it completely, and the reason why I didn't do like a really aggressive shake a minute ago is because a lot of the grinds have stayed in here, and it's easier to strain if you don't pour all the grinds into here. So I usually like give the initial pour and then I like turn the jar a little bit because a little more water will release from those grinds on the bottom. Just gonna do that until I get the bulk of it. Initially I would pour everything in because I was like, I want every little drop of crack out of this, but it just is not worth it for how much more effort I have to put in for this part. So now I just kind of, you know, twist and strain it. I try to not put too much pressure on the bag because I would like for it to last a while. I have been using these for quite some time and they're holding up very nicely, but you know, I don't want to stretch the fibers unnecessarily. Just let it pour through. The end. So like I said, I just dispose of the grounds and then I'm left with this beautiful jar of cold brew coffee ready to go. So one of my favorite little tricks that I learned from my brother is to add a little bit of salt. And the goal here is not to make salted or salty coffee, but adding a little bit of salt to the brew just brings out the flavor in a way that sounds really pretentious, but is actually just true. I use kosher salt for everything because it is better than other types of salt. But sometimes it comes fairly coarse, and so I put some in a grinder. It's a work in progress. So I do a little bit, just a couple of twists into the cold brew. And then I use this lid. I was raised by hippies and we did stuff with mason jars and bags, etc. a lot. And as a result, I have developed a real aversion to pouring things out of mason jars. Mason jars are cool now and I'm fine with that. But we have some issues we need to work through because pouring stuff out of you that is not super viscous is annoying and spilly, and that is my unpopular opinion. I'm coming around to it now, but I did go on Amazon and look for a lid that makes it easier to pour, because I don't want to be spilling little dribbles. I'm not here for the dribbles. This lid, by the way, is from Country Line Kitchen, and I'll put links to the things that I mentioned in the description box, probably. But I do really like this lid. It stays on super tight and is effective. So let me show you how I combine all this together and put it in my mouth. If I'm just gonna be drinking it at home, then I use various mugs. If I'm going to be out and about, then I use these cups that I got at Target, and I do not like, because their peppiness feels artificial, and I don't like being told what to do. You do great things, cup. Leave me alone. But they are very functional, and I do great things, so I guess it's working. If I'm gonna be using those, I stir everything just with the straw that it came with, and if I'm gonna be using a cup and staying home, then I got these cute stir sticks. So the way I like to enjoy this is, I don't really consider this a concentrate at this level, although it is pretty close to like the Chameleon cold brew strength, which is a concentrate, so whatever. I don't water it down, but I do use a few little ice cubes, maybe like this kind of an amount, and then I pour the cafe. And I just leave a little bit of room for some half and half, and I use full fat because I would rather have creamy coffee than be in better shape, just being real. And then I use this little thing with the simple syrup that we made last night. Regrettably, this does not come with the googly eyes. These were an addition that my son made. Having a 4-year-old is why I have things like my little dinosaur baby and googly eyes. Yes, good time. But anyway, I mentioned dribbles before, coming from mason jars. I take even more offense at dribbles from like syrupy dispensers, and so I did a lot of looking around at different products and even tried a few things. So I got this, and technically, if you pour it at the right speed, you don't have to press this to open it, because this automatically opens when you pour. But one time it did pour onto this because I didn't quite do it at the right angle, so now I just automatically, I'm giving you too much detail, I understand that, but I want to help you guys enjoy your coffee process. So when I go to pour it, I just press on the back of that, and then it just comes out all nice and pretty. Ooh, wow. No dribblies. And then I stir it up and drink it. So yeah, I hope that this was helpful. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions for me or suggestions or like fun syrups or things. Always down to hear that. If you are interested in me doing more like kitchen related videos, let me know in the comments. I've toyed around in here with the idea of doing like a I don't like cooking series because I don't like cooking or get any joy from it whatsoever, but I do like good food and I do need to eat food, technically speaking. And I would kind of take some of my brother's expertise and feedback, combine it with my laziness, and create an unstoppable force of like maybe recipes that taste good but require like very little effort, because I have to assume that there are other people on this planet that don't like cooking, because so many people are like, I love to cook. I'm like, oh yeah, that's great. I don't, bitch. And anyway, so if you want to see that, or if you liked this video, let me know in the comments, and don't forget to give this a thumbs up, or I'll chop off your thumbs. And also follow me on Snapchat, Instagram, and Twitter at Kiki Makeup, and subscribe to this channel, or else I will rub sand in your beady little eyes, Woodhouse. If you don't watch Archer, that was from Archer, and I don't actually think you have beady eyes, but I will rub sand in them if you don't subscribe, so what are you gonna do? All right, I'll see you guys later. Bye.